You're standing in your kitchen at 11:30 on a Tuesday night, staring at your phone screen. The blue glow illuminates numbers that feel both familiar and foreign. Your bank balance sits there unmoving while your mind races through calculations you've done 100 times before. Rent next week, groceries tomorrow, that car repair you've been postponing. You set the phone down and notice your reflection in the darkened window. When did money become this constant weight in your chest, this quiet anxiety that follows you from morning coffee to midnight worry? There's a moment in everyone's life when they realize that the relationship between time and money isn't what they thought it was. That the path from where you are to where you want to be might be shorter than the voice in your head keeps whispering. Before we begin, remember, what follows isn't advice, but reflection. A way to understand how money moves through thought and emotion. Inside every person who has ever looked at their bank account with that familiar mix of hope and disappointment lives a curious paradox. The distance between $0 and $100,000 feels infinite, yet many people who have crossed that threshold describe it as surprisingly achievable once something shifts in their understanding. Not their strategy, not their income, not their luck, their understanding. It's like discovering that what you thought was a mountain was actually a hill obscured by fog. The landscape doesn't change. Your perception of it does. This shift happens when people stop seeing money as something that happens to them and start recognizing it as something that flows through patterns they can observe, like watching water move down a hillside. You don't control the water, but you begin to notice where it naturally wants to go. The psychology of accumulation isn't about forcing or grinding until your willpower breaks. It's about creating conditions where money has fewer places to disappear and more reasons to stay. Consider how differently you feel about $1 when you have $10 versus when you have 10,000. The dollar itself hasn't changed. Its purchasing power remains the same, but your relationship to it transforms completely. When scarcity dominates your thinking, every financial decision becomes heavy with consequence. You calculate and recalculate. You postpone and compromise. You carry the weight of each choice like stones in your pockets. Behavioral economists have documented something fascinating about how human perception changes as people move through different financial thresholds. Some research suggests there are psychological breaking points where a person's relationship with money begins to shift. Not because they suddenly earn more, though that can happen, but because accumulation creates its own form of momentum. The first $1,000 saved requires different mental muscles than the 10th thousand. By the time someone reaches 50,000, they may be operating from a different internal framework than when they started. You begin to notice that the person with $100,000 saved didn't get there by thinking about $100,000. They got there by thinking about $1,000, then $5,000, then $10,000. Each threshold crossed quietly rewrites the story they tell themselves about what's possible, not through positive thinking or visualization, but through the simple evidence of their own bank account. Numbers don't lie and numbers don't judge, they just accumulate or they don't. What's remarkable is how this process changes the texture of daily life. Morning coffee stops being a financial calculation and becomes just morning coffee. Unexpected expenses stop feeling like catastrophes and start feeling like minor inconveniences. You sleep differently. You breathe differently. You make decisions from a place of choice rather than urgency. This isn't about having enough money to buy whatever you want. It's about having enough money that money stops being the primary lens through which you view every decision. The path from financial anxiety to financial calm doesn't require you to become a different person. It requires you to become more yourself. The version of yourself that exists when fear isn't making your choices. When you're not calculating whether you can afford groceries while standing in the checkout line, when you can consider opportunities instead of only managing emergencies. There's something meaningful that happens around the $100,000 mark that goes beyond mathematics. It's not just about compound interest, though that plays a role. It's not just about having options, though that matters too. It's about crossing a psychological threshold where you stop seeing yourself as someone who struggles with money and start seeing yourself as someone who has figured something out. The money becomes evidence of your capability rather than a measure of your worth. Time moves differently when you're building something rather than just surviving something. Months that once felt endless because you are counting down to the next paycheck start feeling purposeful because you're counting up towards something meaningful. The same calendar, the same 24 hours in each day. But your relationship to time itself transforms when you're no longer just trying to make it through the week. You realize that the anxiety you carried wasn't really about money. It was about uncertainty, about feeling out of control, about not knowing if you could handle whatever came next. $100,000 doesn't remove life's challenges, but it can soften the edge of uncertainty. That shift from doubt to confidence changes how you move through the world. The mathematics of human psychology reveals something curious about how we experience progress. When someone accumulates their first $10,000, each additional thousand feels monumental. The leap from 9 to 10,000 creates a psychological shift that's disproportionate to the actual numerical difference. But somewhere between 50 and 70,000, something changes. The gaps between milestones start feeling smaller, even as they grow larger in absolute terms. Your mind begins processing money differently, not because you've learned new skills, but because repetition has rewired your relationship to accumulation itself. This rewiring happens gradually, then suddenly. You might spend months feeling like progress is invisible, watching your balance creep upward by hundreds rather than thousands. Then one day you check your account and realize you've crossed a threshold you've been thinking about for years without noticing the exact moment it happened. The anticipation was more intense than the arrival. The worry was more exhausting than the actual work. Some studies show that people experience what's called hedonic adaptation with financial milestones. The excitement of reaching a goal fades faster than expected, but something more valuable takes its place. A quiet confidence that wasn't there before. Not confidence about money specifically, but confidence about your ability to sustain effort over time. To delay gratification not through willpower, but through a shift in how you perceive time itself. The journey from that midnight kitchen anxiety to a sense of financial calm isn't about discovering a hidden formula or mastering complex strategies. It's about recognizing that the relationship between you and money was never really about money at all. It was about time, patience, and the slow transformation that happens when you stop fighting your circumstances and start moving with them. The person staring at their phone screen tonight, calculating and recalculating, already possesses everything they need to cross that threshold. Not because the path is easy, but because the path is there. If this brought you clarity, subscribe for more calm reflections that help you build your own engine of understanding. Understand, draw, grow.